Hello everybody, welcome back. Today we are playing, oh yeah, we're not playing, you are watching what I have played in the Liberation of Hyrule Insanity's Extreme. And in today's video, you'll get to see me go to Death Knights or Us. Pretty much just like the first Liberation of Hyrule game, their Fortress 5 is Death Knight Battle Royale. I really like this fortress. You know, I think Death Knights are one of the dumbest enemies in Zelda Classic, but when used properly, and I do feel that these are used properly, in interesting battle scenarios, I think they're a really cool enemy. And this first one is a really cool idea. It's one of these little puzzle block Death Knight battles. So pretty much you have to close in on the distance and just throw your bombs at it. Really cool battle. You can't... The Death Knights have a really high aggressive rate. So they're just... when they're close to you, they will just go after you. But when they're far away, they kind of just do whatever they want. You have to be real careful not to... Because these Death Knights are really fast, they can just appear from one side of the box immediately to where you push the block and walk out and kill you, so you have to be really careful. Other than that, this one's actually, I feel, one of the easier Death Knight battles. It just takes a little patience, that's all. And of course you don't want to accidentally push these blocks to where the Death Knight has an opening as well. So in a scenario like this, the Death Knight generally doesn't want to move out of the way. You kind of have to move out of the way, or the Death Knight's just gonna want you to make that mistake. But you move out like that, then you can push the block in and be safe. Sometimes Death Knights like to change their mind in the very last second, and he almost got out there and killed me. But right there I go like, you can do it. And so, this battle is now over. I liked this battle. It was a very clever puzzle battle, so good job, James. So, I get the upgraded sword, the white sword, so now I can shoot sword beams. And you'll need those sword beams for the rest of the Death Knight battles. The majority of these battles, there are some other brand new ones like that first one you saw, but a lot of these other ones are redone, ones that you've seen from the first game, but they're a little different, and you'll see starting here. This is just like the first game, however, the first Liberation of Hyrule did not have the ice there. So this time, you actually have to use the conveyor belts instead of boycotting them, making this fight a lot harder. You actually have to pay attention to the little timer and the conveyor belts. The first game, you can actually get away with boycotting that by walking in between the conveyor belts for the most part. So James did a good job with this remake. This is a much harder version of that battle. And spoiler alert, while I had a decently hard time with this in the demo, this was actually done on my first attempt. So props to me for doing it on my first attempt. Yay! That made me really happy. I did have some close calls, as you can see and you will see in the near future. But this is a pretty intense battle, and I really like how James, as I mentioned before, put the little life bar there with scripting. And even though if you know your Zelda Classic, you know that it takes 15 white sword hits to kill a Death Knight. So even without the life bar, you know how many hits, but you have to keep track of that mentally. When there's a life bar there, and this is true for all games, I think having a life bar makes the battle mentally easier. Because if you play a game where there's absolutely no life bar, and you don't know how many hits it takes to defeat the boss, and you spend like 10 to 15 minutes fighting the boss battle, it could be a mental challenge because you don't know how damaged the boss is. But if there's a life bar there, then you know even better if your weapon is effective against that boss or not, just by looking at the life bar. So that's just my opinion, and I feel it's a fairly universal opinion. So this room is the death box because it's really tiny, and you can spend hours, not hours, but many minutes or many seconds, what feels like an eternity, just using your grapple hook running away from this guy. But there comes a point to where you have to not rely on the grapple hook and shoot your sword at him. And pretty much what I do is, when I don't do it all the time like I should, but you only really want to use the grapple hook to run away from the Death Knight, and then you want to walk and position yourself like I did down there. The Death Knight doesn't, when he's close to you, he'll go after you, but when he's far away, he kind of moves randomly. So when you're at a decent distance, you actually want to walk and position yourself to shoot your sword beam instead of trying to use your grapple hook to position yourself. Otherwise, you're gonna have a hard time positioning yourself to get this Death Knight. This was a pretty good battle. It's because the room is a lot smaller. This battle is a bit more intense. For some reason, I actually had a less difficulty in this room than I did in the first game. I don't know why. Probably because in the first game the room was so much larger. It probably took me longer to hit the Death Knight, and because this room's a lot smaller, I found more opportunities to attack the Death Knight. That said, however, there are also a lot more opportunities for the Death Knight to get me. But another advantage I have as well is, because the room's a lot smaller, it doesn't take as long for my grapple hook to reach the edge to grapple me over, whereas the first game, the room was much larger and it took a lot longer for the grapple hook to reach it. So if the Death Knight wanted, the Death Knight had more of an opportunity to chase me through the grapple hook shot and kill me that way, where there's actually, I feel, less of a chance of that happening in this game. So that was a fun improvement on that battle. Oh, the difference. This is one of my favorite rooms right here. The fast tile walk, closed space with a Death Knight. I sometimes ask myself if it's possible to do this battle with the wooden sword. I doubt anyone will ever try or do that. But I don't know, I get that feeling. Because sometimes I'm right next to the Death Knight when I hit him, but that sword beam really makes this battle a lot nicer. For the most part, it's not too hard avoiding Death Knight in that room, but that room could go terribly wrong really, really soon. So this next one is an improvement on this battle. This one, because there's the conveyor belts there, makes it a lot harder for me to, let's see, it makes me have to act a bit earlier on, and I have to be better at baiting the Death Knight into moving in a certain position. This one, more than most other Death Knight battles, teaches you, forces you to bait the Death Knight into doing what you want it to do. And for the most part, you want the Death Knight to be and the opposite side of you vertically, but not so much horizontally. You want to be by the portals where you can escape, but if you're not by the portals and the Death Knight is in the wrong position, you can easily die. And there are a couple times where I was in those positions, but what I do is I just hope that the Death Knight decides he wants to go the other way for some reason instead of going toward me. So if I make a mistake, it does require some luck to survive. But as long as you play it cool and stick by the portals and bait the Death Knight properly, that room's not so bad. So onward to the next room. This one is a very, 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 very intense battle. I felt in the first game this was probably one of the most intense Death Knight battles, but now you have the added fun of fireballs. And so you can't just sit there and all relax all day on your stupid little ladder. You actually have to pay attention to the regular fireballs, pay attention to the Death Knight shots so that you don't turn and block the fireball and get hit by a Death Knight shot, and you have to do it quickly, otherwise the fireball is going to wear you out and kill you that way. So this is a very, very intense battle. I did not do this one on my first try. You know, another thing with looking at the life bar is while you do mentally know how much life the enemy has, it can also make you a little more anxious at the end of the battle. Like, oh, he's almost dead. I'm getting a little nervous. But at the same token, you know the boss is almost dead, so I go, okay, I can take this extra risky maneuver to where if I were to do it when he had full life, he'd just continue on with his movement and kill me, but since he has only one last hit, I can take this risky maneuver and kill him. So that's another thing with life bars. This Death Knight battle also forces you to properly bait the Death Knight. I feel this is one of the easier battles. I have a very high success rate in this one. In fact, when I didn't do it my first try in the full version, even though it's the exact same, but I did this my first try in the demo. One thing you can't do is you can't touch the graveyards, because then, what are they, guineas? The ghost enemies, the phantom ones will come out and you can't kill them. So even if you kill the Death Knight, there's still enemies on the screen, and you can't leave the area and you can't get the heart container piece, so you have to die. So pretty much what you want to do is stay far away from him, and you can lure the Death Knight down the little graveyard hallways to bait him. When you're in the graveyard hallways yourself, you can face up and down to shoot the Death Knight, but you do have to be careful and not activate the ghosts. Otherwise, just like getting hit by the Death Knight, you might as well reset the game. Yeah. So I felt this was a pretty good battle. This one actually reminds me a lot of Armageddon quests. Mansion of Thieves. Thieves Mansion. It's the level 8 version. You see, I kind of just show right there the little ghosts, what happens when you touch the graveyard. Now this next one, there's nothing different about this one. There's really nothing much to say about this. This one, at this point in the game, is highly luck oriented, because if the Death Knight doesn't go to you right away, you'll just die. And it does require pretty much perfect timing with your sword slashes. You can't just mash it, otherwise the Death Knight will kill you. If you're having trouble with that room, you can always go back later with the magic sword and more hearts. I had some weird editing there. Oh! I thought I put this last, but yeah. I wanted to put this one last in my video because this is my least favorite battle. At least there's absolutely nothing different about this one. With the exception is you have the option to fight him in the middle of the room instead of to the side. So I decided to make things differently, to make it different. I just did it through the middle of the room instead of the side of the room. But this is all there is to this battle. I've never died once to this battle, even though I wanted to die. You know, I sometimes wonder, because you start out in the middle of this room instead of to the very side, I wondered to myself if it is possible, in theory, to walk to the heart container piece successfully, especially if you utilize the red candle properly. I might have to give that a try and see if it's possible. If it's possible to do that, I highly recommend it doing that way, other than doing it this way. This isn't that challenging, but it's a different kind of challenge. It's a challenge of your patience. So, Liberation of Hyrule doesn't just challenge you with battle strategy, it challenges you in all aspects, including patience. So, if you're missing patience, you're not going to be able to do this one room. But I understand James went over his reasonings behind keeping it in, and I understand his logic and his reasoning, and that's perfectly fine. It does make the game, because this was in the first game, it does give it that homage. And yeah, while I don't like it, I can deal with it, pretty much. You know, you have to ask yourself, if you can run around on ice in full plate mail armor faster than most humans can run, I'd be very afraid of you. Just saying, especially if you shoot fireballs. I'd call you a Death Knight if you could do that. Yeah. Or I'd call you Bubba, because nobody messes with Bubba. But I really don't have anything else to say here. Feel free to skip ahead a couple minutes so that you can finish this one up. Oh, I got something to say. You wanna know what's one of the worst feelings that happens in this fight, in any Death Knight battle, is when you shoot your sword beam and it looks like it's gonna hit the Death Knight, but in the very last instant, the Death Knight turns toward you and blocks your shot. Or even better, when you line your shot perfectly, and if the Death Knight were to continue his path, would run into your sword shot, but the very last moment, the Death Knight decides to turn the other way, and your sword beam misses completely. Then the Death Knight tauntingly turns and continues his original path. And that's the worst. Just saying. Well, anyways, victory music. La 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 la. I'm the best. Oh yeah. Yeah, there we go. So now for this final part. There's nothing different with this one from the first game, but I thought this was a really cool battle. I don't know how James could have made this one any different, but that's okay. Some of these battles don't, you know, don't really need to be different. You know, if it were me personally, I would like to do something different, but I don't think James could think of how to make that room different, and I don't think I could think of anything as well. But, oh well. That's it for this part. Tune in next time when you see me come in and finish up Fortress 4. So, goodbye in another